QBC. Today I want to talk about something that's okay. I'm not gonna open all of my videos like this, but I assure you, this is a topic that I am very passionate about. I mean, you can say that for my other videos, and sure, I'm passionate about the topics that I talk about in those videos, but in this one, I'm especially passionate. Um, the reason being is because today I'm going to be talking about wrestling once again. And like I said before, I'm a wrestling fan and I've been watching it since I was a kid. Well, I wouldn't really say that I'm a hardcore fan of wrestling. I would certainly say that um, I'm definitely a veteran fan of wrestling and at least know a decent amount about the business to know which wrestling companies from which. So, yeah, I'm no slouch. Even if I'm not necessarily an expert in the sport itself or even the business. Um, but one thing has always fascinated me and kind of irked me about the wrestling world, or rather, what people outside of the wrestling world think of wrestling and how they see it. Um, the reason why I say that is because, well, every time an outsider, or rather, someone who isn't familiar with wrestling, talks about wrestling, they usually only ever talk about WWE. Now, the reason why is because WWE is the biggest wrestling company in the world. It makes sense why most people only really know about wrestling because of WWE. So, yeah, no brainer. Duh. I get that. But it would be great if more people could talk about wrestling companies that aren't WWE more often. Because wrestling is more than just WWE. I know, shocker. No, but seriously, there are other wrestling companies out there that, while they're not WWE, they're either just as good or slightly better. It depends on how you feel, right? It's all about preference and of course different wrestling companies do things differently. Um, you got companies like AEW that try to differentiate themselves from WWE, um, in a similar vein to how WCW tried to back in the day. Um, but then you also have Impact, who have pretty much been around for a very long time, ever since the early 2000s. They were kind of a rival to WWE. Eh, um, I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. They didn't really stand a chance, but I mean, at least they tried. Um, well, that and the fact that they've died 50 times. As I was saying, um, Impact have died basically multiple times, or rather, they've almost died multiple times. Sorry, um, because 1 minute Impact is dying, the next minute it's not. 1 minute it's dying, the next minute it's not. It's rather funny, but also rather interesting. I I guess you could say that Impact or TNA, um, which is how most people know it, but whatever, is kind of like a cockroach. While I would never call them that, I will admit that they're a pretty resilient company, and the fact that they're still around nowadays and have even gone back to their roots, for the most part, from what I can tell, and are actually doing decently well, is a testament to the company, and it shows that yeah, there's plenty of people that are willing to watch Impact slash TNA, even if it's not that many people. Still, it's a decent amount of people that are willing to watch the product. So yeah, I definitely gotta give them respect. Well, I gotta give TNA a lot of respect if we're being honest here. Um, because for the longest time, their women's division was much better than WWE's. And it took WWE to get their women's division up to snuff with literally every other wrestling company. That's another thing about WWE. Because WWE casts such a wide net over the wrestling world, whenever people do discover other wrestling companies, it's always interesting to see them reacting to just how different they are compared to WWE, whether they be in America or Europe or Japan, right? Like whichever company, wherever, um, whether they're a big company or whether they're a medium-sized company or even a small indie company. It's always interesting to see how people react to how different all these companies are from WWE. Um, and boy, there's a lot of them. There's new ones popping up every day. Um, One of them is DPW, which, funnily enough, was actually a wrestling company created by wrestling YouTubers who were so passionate that they just decided to start their own wrestling promotion, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Good luck to them, by the way, because running a wrestling company is no joke. It's one of the toughest things in the world, and here's good luck to them in the future. Here's hoping that they can pull it off in the long term. But then you also have GCW and CZW, two very extreme and very ECW-esque wrestling companies that are not child friendly and are far from as PG as you possibly can they because they allow people to basically spill blood all over the ring, use weapons, base in practically every match, do death-defying stunts almost all the time, no matter the condition. Um, um, basically, people places like CCW and GCW tend to get extreme pretty quickly, and it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If if you do some extreme and non PG stuff over there, then then you're pretty much welcome. Um, yeah, shows like CCW and GCW are not for the faint of heart. If you have squeamish stomach or if you're just squeamish in general, then please stay away from those companies. But if you love hardcore wrestling, then go to those companies. Um, you might find a couple people, or hey, even a couple match types that you like. Um, so yeah, and then you also have ROH and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, two other indie companies that are actually pretty famous slash popular slash well known. ROH is the most well known of the two because a lot of the wrestlers that are either in WWE or Impact or AEW came from there. So yeah, yeah. Most of the wrestlers from ROH ended up actually becoming either notable or big or just ended up actually doing really well in the long term for their careers, depending on where they went. Now, not everybody from ROH became a huge star or went to a big company to make it big and make lots of money, but it's surprising how a lot of wrestlers in WWE and Impact and AEW came from ROH and ended up, you know, progressing through the wrestling world, climbing the wrestling ladder, and getting from one company to the other and becoming notable in some way, shape, or form. So yeah. Oh, and don't even get me started on the fans. Much like, much like all the different companies, be they PG or not, right? Um, of course, the fans are pretty diverse as well. You got large crowds, but then you also got medium crowds, and then you got small crowds. You got the hardcore crowd, you got the casual crowd, and then you got the people that are somewhere in the middle. Of course, you got the new people, and then you got the veterans. Um, Honestly, if you're gonna start small, then I suggest you start with companies with like well ROH and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, right? However, if you want more hardcore wrestling companies and and maybe aren't a big fan of WWE's PG style, then go to CCW and GCW and so on. But of course, if you like the hardcore style, but you're not American and you're looking for something fairly different, well, then go to New Japan Pro Wrestling or Stardom, companies that are great for both male and female wrestlers alike. So, yeah. Honestly, you have a lot of options. You really do. With wrestling, you got a lot of options. Wrestling is more than just WWE, and honestly, I'm glad it is. I'm glad we got more wrestling, right? Sure, some say it's too much, and you know what? It is. It is too much wrestling. You gotta find whatever you want to watch on your time. And sure, that's hard to do. I understand that, but at the same time, it's pretty freaking cool that we have more wrestling companies other than WWE, and that's all I have to say about that. So yeah. Which wrestling companies do you like? Are you a fan of WWE or not? Um, yeah. Um, and right. Yeah, and are you a fan of WWE's PG style, or are you a fan of the non-PG style, or do you want something in the middle? Right. Um, yeah, that's all I got. Please check the description. All the important stuff is in it. I'll be making I'll be making a community post for this video, and yeah. Um, oh, also, if you're a long-term wrestling fan, or right, or a wrestling veteran, or if you're just new to wrestling and starting out, please say so in the comment section. Um, yeah, that's all I got. If you want more of me, then you know exactly what to do. I won't hold your hand through the process. Real King out. Have a nice day, people.